Good morning, my friends. How are you? I'm back here, continuing our conversation, continuing our conversation on the mystery of death. And today, I am going to help us, you, me, everyone, open the window to the mystery beyond, the journey into the next dreamscape. So I hope you can listen to me, you can see me clearly, and you can hear me clearly. I've taken the pains to get a new microphone and set up my office here so that we can continue these conversations. So, of course, I mentioned that if you want to fully engage in this conversation, then remember this is the 9th in the series on the mystery of death, and before that we had 15 in the series of mystery of I am. It might help you to go back and sequentially look at some of those videos and some of those conversations. Nevertheless, let us continue. And I just want to start off by saying that if your ontological primitive is matter, if you think that the physical universe gives rise to everything, including our own consciousness, then anything I say will not make sense to you. Once again, if you think that consciousness is the epiphenomenon of matter, then nothing that I say will make sense to you. And you might as well press the delete button and erase the perceptual activity that is giving rise to the experience of Deepak Chopra. So, delete, erase. I don't have to be part of your perceptual activity or the interpretation of it. But if you do believe that matter is actually a human interpretation for a human perceptual activity, that everything that we call the physical reality is actually the projection of our collective consciousness, and our constructs of our experiences, constructs are interpretations of our experiences. If you believe that the physical world and the physical body are projections, part of the dreamscape, the projection of consciousness as a result of the interpretation of human perceptual activity, that we are already, all of us, right this now, embedded in a collective dreamscape, then what I say might make sense to you. So what I'm going to do today is actually read a bit also from my notes. And these notes come from the experiences of a diverse group of rishis, sages, geniuses, explorers of internal reality or fundamental reality, or fundamental being, and all these insights are from explorers of reality with deep understanding that consciousness is not a product of matter, that matter is a human construct for human perceptual experience. Our collective dreamscape includes everything from stars, galaxies, to rocks, to plants, to bacteria, to viruses, but also to includes our individual body-mind. That's part of the collective dreamscape, and it's evolving. The universe as we experience it in the biological organism that is experiencing the universe is constantly evolving, has been constantly evolving. In other words, the experience of the universe, of the body, of the mind, are correlated, co-evolving experiences in consciousness. So with this, based on the deeper understanding that comes from people who've had near-death experiences, but also the insights of sages and rishis, or just those of us who are able to change the quality of our attention in meditation, or have the desire or the intention to have these experiences, then we all have this common experience. But just like right now, our collective interpretation of perceptual activity is giving rise to the dreamscape we're embedded in. As we begin our journey, let us see what others have said, and if we can actually explore this territory on our own through various practices of contemplative self-inquiry, imagination, sensing, perceiving, interpreting our experiences, etc., etc. So here's what my notes are saying at this moment, and let me read them to you. The senses, as we begin the journey beyond, as we begin the process of what we call death, as death approaches, then the senses, which are, of course, giving rise to the experience of the material world, and also the interpretation of that senses, of those senses, begin to fade. There's a dulling of the senses. And the first sense that fades is visual experience. And then all the other senses start to fade. Visual experience and smell and taste. In fact, I'm sorry, the first senses to fade are taste and smell. And then sight, vision. And then sensation. And finally, vibration that we call thought. That is the sequence of the fading of the senses. Okay, let me start again. Smell and taste first, and then form, color, vision next, and then sensation of texture next, and finally the vibration, the sound, subtle sound vibration that we call thought. So this happens sequentially. And the last one is to fade out as the vibration which we call thought. However, as the material senses become duller, there is an increase in psychical senses such as clairaudience, clairvoyance, celestial sights and sounds, heavenly beings and brilliant lights. Are these projections? Are these imagined projections? Are these cognitive experiences? Yes, just as this one is. Okay, so we experience all these depending on our cultural conditioning, and during this time, people who have close association to a dying person may feel the presence of that person in the form of an apparition, a sound, a physical sensation, even from a distance, and sometimes even before the death of the person. So what we are doing is consciousness, personal consciousness, is actually breaking down the boundaries of everyday perceptual experience and its interpretations. And that is what is happening. So somehow, some people can also tune into a dying person's vibrational frequency or their own astral body. Astral body, right now, means the subtle body of intellect, mind, and ego, which is projecting as the physical body. So sometimes other people can tune into it and become aware of the transition of that person, even from a distant place. At death, the astral body, which is the exact counterpart of the physical body, the light body, the body made of photons, if you want to use that metaphor, but it's actually the body of mind, intellect, and ego. This body starts to separate from the physical body. The soul, and by soul I mean conscious agent or awareness. I think just keep this simple. The soul is awareness, personal awareness, collective awareness, universal awareness. So at this point, the soul or awareness enters a period of deep sleep in the astral body, a deep slumber. Just means like the ordinary sleep, where all excitations of consciousness disappear. Normally, the soul sleeps in deep peace, but if the person departed prematurely or had many unfulfilled desires, this sleep may be restless and disturbed. Disembodied souls that have a very strong attraction to the physical plane of material existence and have not been able to let go, people who have died suddenly or violently or unnaturally, such as those who may have been murdered, committed suicide, or died from drugs, may sometimes linger in astral planes of a frequency that is very similar or in between our physical plane and the deeper dimensions of awareness or consciousness. And these could be called the bardos. In Tibetan traditions, these are called the bardos. Or there are different lokas. Loka means locations of consciousness that give us the experience of a particular dimensionality of experiences. So normally the soul sleeps in deep peace, but if the person died prematurely, then the sleep may be restless and disturbed. Okay. I mentioned this already, so let's go further. When a person dies suddenly or unnaturally, they haven't had time to work out their earthly karma. Karma simply means experiences or interpretations of experiences. Until they have fully processed their attachments and karmic obligations on this plane, they will remain drawn to this denser plane, the physical realm that we are in right now, or the interpretation of perceptual activity that we call the physical realm. And they may continue to vibrate on the frequency of this plane for some time, even though they are on astral plane. They remain caught up between two worlds, so to speak. And if there is intense attachment from the people left behind, and they keep calling to the soul through seances and such, the soul will continue to be disturbed in its sleep. The will of those left behind can cause restlessness of the soul, of awareness, personal, which is part of the collective, universal, and so on. When a person dies, and remember, the person is a process, it's a projected process of awareness, it is important to let them move on and rest in peace. The soul sleeps in the astral body, just as the fetal soul sleeps in the womb. A peaceful death and a letting go will produce a peaceful sleep in the astral body. So the best way to transit into the next transit lounge, because we are in a transit lounge in the universal dreamscape, and each is a transit lounge. So as we go into that next transit lounge, if we are conscious, if we are in meditation, if we are in what is called Mahasamadhi, we can actually consciously begin to navigate the dreamscape of the bardo, of the loka, and actually engineer from there, through imagination, the entanglement of sensations, perceptions, images, feelings, and thoughts that may give rise to what may be called the next incarnation. The next incarnation. So, peaceful death and a letting go will produce a peaceful sleep in the astral body. A restless soul may attempt to revisit the earthly plane or as a ghost or an apparition, but ultimately, even in these cases, fatigue will set in, and the soul will eventually settle into its deep sleep in the astral body. At death, And from people who've had near-death experiences, we hear often the whole panorama of a person's life flashes before his eyes or her eyes in a split second. This is a demonstration that every second contains of eternity. Very important. During the deep sleep of the soul or awareness, all the memories of past events in the physical body get impressed onto that soul or that awareness, forming the karmic software which will give rise to its future individuality. In the process of dying, very often a person will have a review of this software of existence, seeing their entire life rerun in a few moments. A concentrated record of an entire lifetime is then carried into the slumber state of the soul as the karmic software. In Christian and other religious doctrines, we hear expressions such as rest for the weary, entering the long rest, which Christian and other religious doctrines also interpret as different realms of existence, purgatories and hells and heavens and all kinds of realms. When a person has a near-death experience, they have for a moment vibrated at a certain astral plane and then come back to their normal physical vibratory frequency. The period of a soul slumber varies according to the degree of evolution of the soul at the time of death. The main reason for the sleep slumber or the dark period of the soul or the absence of experience is essentially to shed its attachments and then to awaken to the astral frequency or plane most appropriate to its level of evolution. The degree of attachments will determine how long it takes to shed them. When the soul awakens, it can only enter a plane of existence that is familiar to you. So when we entered this plane, it seemed familiar, right? It wasn't that you entered this plane and said, what the heck is going on? Where am I? It seemed familiar to you. So if you enter a higher plane than your level of evolution, you would become confused and uncomfortable. Likewise, it is not possible to go backwards in evolution. You can only progress. You can't go backwards and be a butterfly or a worm or anything else that is part of the conscious evolution of the universe. It's a spiral that's going up, metaphorically speaking. So likewise, it is not possible to go backwards. You only progress forwards, although you can navigate through memory the experience of what we might call backward. First, the astral soul sleeps to partially detach and forget the things that are not necessary to remember, and then awakens to the astral frequency plane that is most appropriate to its level of evolution. Once it reawakens, it continues with its evolution from that point to higher levels of awareness. Okay, that's a brief summary from my notes. Okay, and much of this I have addressed in my book as well, the book that is called Life After Death. So what are we saying? We are saying that the dream continues, but the dream evolves. The dreamscape that we're in now, right now, in this transit lounge, moves to a new transit lounge. And the transit lounge that you enter is according to your level of expansion of awareness of reality, right? A worm or a bee or an eagle or a dolphin or a hippopotamus have no idea that the human dreamscape right now includes 2 trillion galaxies in infinite universes, 700 sextillion stars, uncountable trillions of planets, and the human dreamscape also includes all the other biological organisms that we call sentient beings. So these are the deep mysteries that come from the Akashic chronicles that are contained in the Akashic field. The Akasha being Chit Akash, which is prior to space-time and causality, which is prior to the constructs of electromagnetic fields and also prior to the construct of particles and atoms and force fields and gravity and all of that, which right now is part of our collective dreamscape. So fascinating. So you will enter the dreamscape that is consistent with your own imagination, with your culture, with your beliefs, with your religious ideas, with your cultural inheritance, or you might want to actually visit another loka which has a different cultural context, meaning, relationship, or story. Basically, we conceive, construct, imagine, and become our stories. And of course, if we understand consciousness, then there are infinite stories. So why get stuck in one story? The current experience of what we call the physical world is our current story. Let me look at my notes. So I just want to make sure that I complete today's what I intended to complete. So I'm reminded right now, of the Chinese philosopher who said, last night I had a dream that I was a butterfly. And this morning I am confused. Am I a philosopher who dreamt I was a butterfly? Or am I a butterfly who dreamt I am a philosopher? Which one am I? And the answer is neither or both. Neither or both. You are the consciousness that is simultaneously experiencing the human body of mind and the butterfly and everything else. All at the same time is entangled as sensations, images, feelings, thoughts, perceptions, imagination, desire, memory, karma, and insight and understanding that is projecting as this collective dreamscape that is the transit lounge of our present experience of existence. So I will close today with a beautiful poem from Rabindranath Tagore. Before I do that, Ramanand Dikshit has a good point. He says, we escape the dreamscape to create more dreamscapes. And ultimately, I think we escape all dreamscapes to find freedom in the knowing that we are the dream weavers. We are dream weavers that are weaving dreams and embedding ourselves in those dreams that we call existence. Yes, Ramanand, all constructs. Okay, so here is a beautiful poem by Tagore, Rabindranath Tagore, the great sage and scientist of all time in our modern ages. So this is from his book, Gitanjali. I have carried this book for the last 50 years with me, tattered in the form of notes, etc. Here is what Tagore says. I was not aware of the moment when I first crossed the threshold of this life. What was the power that made me open out into this vast mystery, like a bud in the forest at midnight? When in the morning I looked upon the light, I felt in a moment that I was no stranger in this world, and that the inscrutable without name and form, had taken me in its arms in the form of my own mother. Even so, in death, the same unknown will appear as ever known to me. What is the same unknown? Pure consciousness. Me, I am. I am Ein Sof. Even so, in death, Brahman. The same unknown will appear as ever known to me. And because I love this life, I know I shall love death as well, because death is the window to the next dreamscape, the door, the transit lounge. The child cries out when from the right breast the mother takes it away, in the very next moment to find in the left one its consolation. So when I go from here, let this be my parting word, that what I have seen is unsurpassable. I have tasted of the hidden honey of this lotus that expands on the ocean of light, and so I am blessed. Let this be my parting word. In this playhouse of infinite forms, I have had my play, and here I have caught sight of him or her that is formless. My whole body and my limbs have thrilled with the touch of the formless, who is beyond touch. And if the end comes here, let it come. Let it be celebrated. Let this be my parting word. How beautiful. How lovely. So, in the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, I am the field and I am the knower of the field. The field is kshetra. The knower of the field is kshetagya. I am the field and I am the knower of the field. Now, Einstein is famously quoted as saying that in the new physics, there is no room for matter and the field. There is only the field. But of course, he is referring to the electromagnetic field and space-time and gravity and all that. There's a field beyond that, which is the field of consciousness, the field of knowing, the field that knows and then creates the constructs of gravity, electromagnetism, force fields, particles, and then projects that as the physical world. But it is not. Okay, the real field is not the electromagnetic field or gravity, it is the field of consciousness. It is I am. And so that is where we can end today. A lot of people are saying broadcast interrupted, but a lot of people are also saying that the broadcast is coming through very clearly. So I think what is happening is that the broadcast goes to the Facebook server, from where it goes to different parts of the world, and depending on the internet connection there, some people get it clearly, some people not so clearly. But I will make sure that this broadcast also goes elsewhere on YouTube and other sites, so you can see it again if you want to. Okay? Ramanand Dikshit, was it clear? Subhash says that this talk helped everyone to come. Oh boy, let me see what Subhash is saying, because it's important. Subhash says, you guys move so fast, I can't keep track of you. Okay, well, Subhash, you said this talk came from, helped you. So, you know, the other thing I'm maybe requesting all of you right now, if it's possible, is that if anyone feels, I can't find Subhash's comments, so I'm not going to address them. Ramanand Dikshit says, lovely, he heard me. So any one of you who feels inspired to transcribe these talks and put them on the YouTube channel, the Chopra Well, where these talks will continue to appear, it would help all of us. So, you know, if you feel inspired, transcribe these, make notes, and send them along. I will continue to explore this with all of you. Thank you very much, and let's end with a mantra. Let's Create one. Kshetragya. What does that mean? The knower of the field. I am the knower of the field. So, aham kshetragya. Aham kshetragya. How's that? Okay, my friends, see you tomorrow. Ramanand Dikshit says, Samadhishta Keshava. Thank you.